Hello everyone, Mr. Tribell here, and I'm creating this video to demonstrate how you're going to use your completed outline to help you to write your rough draft of your research paper. Um, what you're looking at is an example of an outline that was submitted by one of my students from one of my classes. Just speaking in general first, I was able to grade all of your outlines on Classroom if you submitted them. You've now received them back. I have commented on each and every one of yours, given you some useful tips for revision and editing. Please do look at those comments. Don't just disregard them. Don't just read over them or ignore them. Read them, make the necessary revisions because that's only going to help you as you revise the outline, but certainly it's going to help you as you get into drafting your paper. So pay attention to my comments. Before I get started here, I just want to make the announcement that if you're behind in this process at all, so if you have not completed your outline, which I do have a few students that have not completed their outlines, it's really important that you do so. I know that our rough draft is due on Friday this week, but completing your outline, as you hopefully will see as I demonstrate this, is immensely useful when it comes time to actually draft your paper. So, because it's so useful, I highly advise you to actually complete the outline first, submit it to me. I can give you feedback, and then use my feedback and your completed outline to then draft, right? I do still have some people that didn't complete their note cards. If you're that far behind in the process, again, you need to complete that step first, right? Complete your notes first, turn it into me. I'll give them back to you. Move to the outline, move to the draft. That's how the research paper process works, guys. You can't skip steps. So try to make up ground if you are behind. What I will say is about this person, overall they did a good job. They followed my formatting here, right? So as I'm scrolling down, you'll see, as all of you have seen and used, first I kind of outline exactly what you needed to write for the outline to receive credit for it. And then afterwards, it was your turn to actually fill in these letters. This person did a good job. They used enough detail. What I will say though is that even though they did a good job, they received a good grade on this. There is no such thing as a perfect outline. There's no such thing as a perfect paper, right? When it comes time to writing, everything can be improved through revision and time, right? So as we scroll through, as I read, and kind of as I go through the process here, I'm actually going to highlight how this person can actually improve their writing also on the outline, even though they did a really good job. So first things first, I'm going to scroll down. We're going to read what they wrote. I'm going to comment on some things. Once we've gotten through the outline itself, reading it, maybe editing it a little bit, or at least I'll offer some suggestions for this person. Then we're actually going to use this information to craft our rough draft. So let's scroll down first. All right, so your turn. Introduction. So I'm going to read this loud. Follow along, please. Have you ever had to go to school escorted by soldiers whilst having a load of people screaming at you? So just commenting on their hook sentence. I like it. They used one of the three suggestions that I offered you guys on the model. I said maybe use a quote, use a specific detail, or use a question. I thought this usage of the question and the phrasing was well done. Personally, I think it makes you think. It made me think, like, has this ever happened to me? You have to take a moment to think about that. And think about your experiences previously in school, right? And then you also think about some of the details here, right? Someone being escorted by soldiers. And that's a specific enough detail to hopefully make you want to keep reading. I know I certainly want to keep reading after reading that question. So I thought that was an effective hook. The follow up, the transition. Well, in 1957, the 9 students in Little Rock, Arkansas had to, just so they could attend their local high school. And now we have for letter C, our thesis statement. The integration of Little Rock Central High School by the Little Rock Nine is the most significant civil rights event in history because of how the school board faced problems like protests by local groups, the violence on the day of the integration and the protection needed, and how people would reflect on the desegregation of Little Rock years later. So the thesis statement follows the correct format. You get your claim here, right? So as the reader, when I read this, I know exactly what this paper is going to be about. It's going to be about the integration of Little Rock Central High School by the Little Rock Nine. The argument that this person is making is that that is the most significant civil rights event in history, right? So that's what the paper is going to be about. That's the claim being made. It's the most significant civil rights event. Why is it the most significant civil rights event? Well, they give us three reasons, right? So the first reason is because of how the school board faced problems from local groups. Second reason, the violence on the day of the integration and the protection needed, presumably for students. And then the third reason is it's the most significant civil rights event because of how people would reflect on that desegregation of this high school in Little Rock years later, right? So as the reader, when I read this, that tells me this is an effective thesis statement. I know what the claim is. I know the three reasons that are going to be used. Guys, just a quick point about the thesis statement, and I commented on this on some of the outlines. Your thesis statement is your roadmap for your paper. It's the most important sentence of your paper. So do make sure that you're following the correct format for the thesis statement. Refer back on Classroom to that thesis statement handout that I provided to you and that you hopefully submitted back to me if you need some more reference. But you should have a claim. You should have your three reasons outlined right in that sentence. Last sentence of your intro. Okay, body paragraph 1. The integration of Little Rock Central High School by the Little Rock Nine is the most significant civil rights event in history, reiterating the claim from the thesis, right, which is good, because of the difficulties faced by the Little Rock School Board while trying to create change. So even though this phrasing is a little bit different, it's still acceptable, right? What I have liked the school board actually is mentioned here. What I have liked, protests by local groups to be mentioned again in this topic sentence. Yes, probably. But overall, it's kind of talking about the same topic, right? It's talking about the difficulties faced by the school board. So based on the thesis statement, I do know what's going to be discussed in this body paragraph, and the topic sentence here reiterates it. So it's good. It just could be a little bit more specific. Scroll down. All right, so here B, C, and D for all of my body paragraphs are going to be the information from my note cards, right? So you guys hopefully took summaries, paraphrases, and direct quotes from your sources about your topic, and now you're going to put that information into B, C, and D for all three of your body paragraphs. So in this body paragraph, all of this information is going to be about the difficulties faced by the school board, right? So let's read it. One of the plans that the school board had to make was the Little Rock Phase Program. This was a plan made by the superintendent, Virgil T. Blossom, in 1945. His goal was to fully integrate all Little Rock schools by 1965, starting with one high school in 1957. Following that, he wanted to integrate junior high schools by the 1960s and elementary schools by 1963. Next piece of information from the notes. A protest that the school board faced was by the students of Central High. On October 3rd, 1957, more than 100 students had staged a walkout in protest of going to school with kids of other races. They would walk out with Confederate pins and hats to show their protest. The students who had walked out faced punishments by the school, like having to interview to come back, letters being sent home, and even suspension. The school board also had the Capital Citizens Council and the Mothers League of Central High School protesting against integration. Both groups didn't want the 9 black kids to be integrated into the school, so they would try to find as many other protesters on the day of the integration. Neither group did much to stop the integration, but in the spring of 1957, they would attack the school board with a campaign. They rallied, promoted false information and segregation advertisements, and told people to write letters to Governor Faubus. All right, letter E is that last sentence of each body paragraph. Now you have a choice with letter E. So letter E for each of the body paragraphs could be you summing up what was discussed in that body paragraph, or it could be a transition sentence where you kind of preview what's going to be discussed in the next body paragraph. This person chose the first option. So this person chose to sum up what they just talked about in that body paragraph. So this is what they wrote. In conclusion, the Little Rock School Board was able to stay strong throughout this time to be able to integrate schools and deal with any problems they had. So a little bit of when you read this carefully, which is what I suggest everyone do with their outline, read it line for line, word for word. And when you're reading it aloud, some of the grammatical errors become apparent. So just a little adjustment here, right? The Little Rock School Board was able to stay strong throughout this time. And I would put and be able instead of to be able, and was able, perhaps, to integrate schools, right? So instead of to be, I would put stay strong throughout this time and was able to integrate schools and deal with any problems they had. I like the usage of a transitional phrase here. Transitions are important in our drafting, guys. But this particular one, I would like you to vary it a little bit. In conclusion, particularly early in the paper, you don't want to use that because that's a phrase that's usually used towards the latter portion of the paper, usually the conclusion paragraph, right? If at all. So I wouldn't use that one there. Try to vary it a little bit. Maybe you can use one like thus, right? Or therefore, something like that. Use a variety of different transitions. And actually, I'm going to put on my classroom a resource for you guys, a page of different transitions that you could use. So I would just maybe vary that transition briefly. All right, body paragraph 2. Another reason the integration of Little Rock Central High School by the Little Rock Nine should be considered the most significant civil rights event in history. Again, I like the reiteration of the argument just to keep your reader focused. Another reason is because of the violent reaction of the community and the need for students to be protected while attending the school. Now we're getting our details on that, right? So on September 23rd, the students were only protected by local police. President Dwight Eisenhower realized this was not enough and they needed more protection, so he ordered the 101st Airborne Infantry Division to surround the school. When the students returned on September 25th, they were driven in an Army staff car and walked in by 20 soldiers. Wow. The integration of the students was being broadcasted and the photos taken were not pleasant. And this is our first direct quote, right? So I like that this person used direct quotes, summaries, and paraphrases, right? And that was apparent when I looked back at their notes also, but we get the quotation marks here, right? So here's a quote. The images of antagonistic crowds and armed guards surrounding a public school defined Little Rock in the national consciousness for decades. What we're going to add in here, and I'll eventually put something on Classroom, which explains exactly how you do this, is that in-text citation, right? So instead of that period being there, instead of this period being there, we would delete that. We would put the quotation marks after decades, and then we would put our parentheses. Right? We would put our parentheses. If we had an author's last name, we would put that last name there. If we had just an article title, we would put that article title there. We would press space, and we would put a page number, right? And then we would end our parentheses, and we put a period, right? We've utilized in-text citation a little bit this year, but not too much. So I'm going to put on Classroom another resource that you can use to look back on to help you with in-text citation. But for now, this is okay. So this would show the violence happening at Little Rock with guards, guns, and others yelling in the crowds. One of the 9 students who had gone to Central High was not completely safe. Minnie Jean Brown had faced not just physical but also verbal abuse. You have to feel like you're better than they are in order to keep your morale up high because it makes you feel kind of low when they're always doing something. This quote's important because we can see how Minnie Jean was coping with other students, and we can assume she wasn't treated well. There's also an incident where someone had moved a chair in front of her when she was walking, and she dumped her lunch tray at 2 other boys who had done nothing. What I like here is the mixture of actually getting the quote from one of the Little Rock Nine about their experience. This person did a good job of explaining that quote in the following sentence, and then we get even more details about some of the harsh treatment afforded to this the student, right, Minnie Jean Brown. So I like the usage of details here. I like how you wove in both a quote and then an explanation also. Again, letter E signals that this is the last sentence of the paragraph, and it's going to sum things up for us. As you can see, not only was there violence outside of the school, but because of the crowds and guards, but even the students faced it inside, right? So what I would do, again, because I'm reading it gradually, I would put but here, I would put a comma after guards. I would actually change up this transition. I don't like this transition, as you can see. If you can avoid it, please avoid it. And every time I see that, I'm always going to make a comment just on the doc. I would just tell you to use a different transition if you could. So try to avoid that one. All right, body paragraph 3. Finally, again, nice use of a transitional phrase. The integration of Little Rock High School by the Little Rock Nine is so significant because of its lasting impact. In a policy statement by the school board, they said, A vital part of the education of any student is learning to live with others. Integration in our schools is essential if our children, both black and white, are to live in harmony in an integrated society. This is important because the school board did, in fact, want to achieve full integration and think it would be the best option for the students in the future. Again, because I'm reading so slowly, I would change that to thought, right? Thought it would be. By the 1970s, Little Rock had 20,000 students, just 20 years after the first integration of their high school. They began achieving many things like having 15 students who went to the semifinals of the National Merit and more finalists than other Arkansas schools in the National Achievement Scholarship Program. Also, they had 2 black students who achieved great things, with one being the president of the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America and the other being governor of Boise State. Although all seemed well, 2 of the 9 students, always write out your numbers, right? 2 of the 9 students who had first integrated the school felt disappointment in the school system. Elizabeth Huckabee and Daisy Bates both felt that the school system had failed to give full education to the students in Little Rock. Minnie Jean Brown also felt that with all the integration, black communities were losing their cultures and traditions. In conclusion, we're getting closer to that conclusion paragraph, but again, I would change that transition. When you reflect on the events of Little Rock and their integration efforts now, they were able to achieve great things. Conclusion paragraph. So what I expect in the conclusion paragraph is the first sentence is going to reiterate the argument. You're going to get, as I outlined in the exemplar directions, you're going to get for B, C, and D, a piece of information from each body paragraph restated for us, rephrased for us, right? And then for that letter E, it's going to be the last sentence of the whole paper, which is going to explain why knowing about, in this case, Little Rock 9 is important for people today, right? 2020. Why is it important that we know about them? So let's see if it satisfies the requirements. The integration of schools by the Little Rock 9 is the most significant civil rights accomplishment in history. Okay, good. That's our argument. Restated. So that's good. Glad it's the first sentence of the conclusion. Second sentence. Little Rock School Board had a major impact on the integration of their public schools with their phase program. Another fact brought up from that body paragraph 1. Good. Additionally, nice transitional phrase, the violence that the 9 students dealt with allowed other schools to see what would happen when they integrated. Lastly, another good transitional phrase, the integration had such an impact in the Little Rock community that people still reflect on it and the achievements made today. The Little Rock 9 is very important because we see how one community was able to handle integrating their school and the effects that it had on any people, right? So again, a case of grammar, because we're reading slowly, we pick up that, we need an M there, right? On many people. And then also the Little Rock 9, that's a plural. It's more than one person, right? Little Rock 9 are very important, right? So overall, I'd like the last sentence, but just a couple grammatical issues with it. So like I stated previously, this outline satisfies all my requirements. Now it's time to use this outline to do our rough draft. So we're going to scroll up. And this is going to show you guys how easy it is once you have this completed to actually do your rough draft. I'm going to click over on a doc, which I created, similar to the doc that I shared with you guys to use for your research paper rough draft. On your doc, same type of heading. This is the MLA heading. You're going to put your name first. In my case, right, Kurt Tribell. You're going to put your name, press enter. You're going to put, the professor, the teacher's name, Mr. Tribell. Enter. Underneath that, you're going to put the course name, right? So English 9, comma, period, and then you fill in whatever period you are for my class. Underneath that, date. Date first, then month, then year. So in this case, today is the 13th, 13 May 2020. We press enter again. We center this heading, and this is going to be our original title for the paper. And to be honest with you guys, original titles, historically for me, as I've written different essays throughout my schooling, that's always something that's difficult, right? So I sometimes wait until the end of drafting, until I'm almost completed with my draft to actually go back then and fill in my title, because you want to make them original, right? You don't want to make them generic or boring. In this case, you don't want to just put the topic, right, and just leave it at that. So this person could have put, or I could have put the Little Rock 9, because that's this person's topic. But there's probably other papers that have that title, and it is kind of a boring title. So you want to change it up a little bit. You want to make it a little bit more interesting. So I put Little Rock 9. I added a colon in here, and then I put the second phrase, changing the American school system, right? By reading the title of your essay, the reader should know exactly what your paper is going to be about. The one thing I just wanted to add before I get into actually copy and pasting over is I'm going to go up to Insert on the Google Doc. Insert. I'm going to go scroll down. I'm going to go to Headers. Scroll over. Click Header. This is automatically moved over on the right-hand side for me. If yours is over this way, right, just click Right. We want to right align it. You're going to put your last name. In my case, it's going to be Tribell, so I'm going to type Tribell. You type your last name, space, press Insert again, scroll down, page numbers, scroll up to this one, and choose it, right? So your first page is going to say Tribell 1. As we scroll down, this should change to Tribell 2, 3, and so on, right? So that's our header. That's part of the MLA formatting also. So make sure you do that. We press Enter. Go left-hand side. All right, with the outline, here's what we're going to do. So now we're satisfied with the outline. We've made some revisions. We're going to copy and paste this over. So under Introduction on the outline, here's what we're doing. Highlighting everything. We're copying. We're pasting. What you have to do now is you have to delete those letters, right? So we're indented here, that's fine, but we got rid of the A from the outline. We got to get rid of the B from the outline. We got to make sure it's one paragraph now. So we got to reformat this. Get rid of the C. So this is our completed first paragraph. Now we're done with our intro. Press Enter. And now we're realigned. So we go back to our outline. And again, we're copying. We're going to paste. And again, do make sure that you reformat this, right? This is not the outline anymore. Get rid of the A. You're indented. That's good. Get rid of the B. Keep pressing backspace till you reformat it. It's your second sentence of the body paragraph. The same thing for C. Always double space after each sentence. All right, so we're done with our first body paragraph. Enter. Ready, copy and paste again. Now, guys, just think this seems easy because my outline's done and I took the time to read through it and make any necessary revisions. But just think if I didn't do that, how much thought would have to be into actually creating a draft, and it would make things so much more complex, which is why it's important that you finish your outline before you actually draft. Get rid of the A. Get rid of the B. Get rid of the C. Get rid of this E. Okay. So we're done. The second body paragraph. Going back. Doing the same thing with body paragraph 3. Okay. Now we have just the conclusion left. All right, we're all done. So notice also, right, we have our header. It's actually been following us, which is good, right? It's been moving forward, moving up in terms of the page number as we've gone through the draft, which is good. Notice that this person has met the length requirement for the paper, right? It's 3 to 5 pages, double spaced. Um, what we want to make sure we do, though, is that we want to make sure it's MLA format, right? So this heading is going to be, most likely Times New Roman 12-point font, but just in case it wasn't, we just want to highlight everything. We want to click here to font. We want to click Times New Roman. We want to click font size. We want to click 12, right? So MLA format is double spaced with our heading, 12-point font Times New Roman. And again, this person's like 3.25 pages in, which is perfect length. My suggestion is, even though we went through and we edited and we took our time and we were careful with it, before I submit anything for a grade, I'm going to read it through one more time. So I would actually, once I have everything copy and pasted over here, I would just take one more look through here, read it, and then make sure I'm not missing anything. And then I would be, prepared to submit it. The last thing I want to show you guys is actually how we're going to put our works cited in here, our works cited page. MLA format dictates that we need a works cited page, especially when we're doing research. So what we're going to do is press enter. The works cited page goes on the next page after your writing stops. So in this case, it's going to go on my 5th page. See, it says Tribal 5. Always start the works cited on the next blank page after your writing stops. We center a line here. We're going to put works cited. Press enter, left align. And now I pulled up, since hopefully we're using all EBSCOhost sources, I pulled up EBSCOhost. I just did a search for the Little Rock 9, which was the topic of this paper. I'm not sure, because I don't have it pulled up at this moment, what sources this person used specifically. But just for example purposes, let's just say they use Little Rock Then and Now, and we want to cite that source. We're going to click PDF full text. Actually, might have to go through this process again. I don't know why, but always make sure we do linked full text. Make sure we do scholarly journals. Little Rock 9. All right, we have Little Rock Then and Now. Again, we're going to click PDF full text. Once you have this, the document's going to load, right? So once you have this up, on the right-hand side here on EBSCOhost, it makes things easier. We have some options. We're going to just keep going, scrolling down. Cite. That's the one you want to click on. So click on Cite. We get this article cited in all the different formats. This is English class, so we're looking for MLA. So we're going to scroll down. We get the MLA, Modern Language Association. And this is our citing that we want. So and we're going to copy it, Control C. With us left aligned, we're going to paste it. Press enter. And now you're ready to cite your second source. You would do the same process in EBSCOhost. When it comes time to actually finalize this works cited page, when you have found the citing for all three sources, you want to make sure that it goes in alphabetical order, right? So starting with A, going to Z. This one starts with an F. So depending on what the other two sources, the author of the other two sources, their last name is, you might have to adjust where this is located on your page, but it's in alphabetical order. Once you're done with your works cited page, you've read through your rough draft, everything looks good, submit on Classroom. Guys, good luck with this whole process. I am here to help. Please email me if you have any questions at all about anything. I am here to help. Have a great day.